ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
Disneyland, SeaWorld, and Legoland won't be reopening anytime soon. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt. Steve has the night off. Today, the state released new guidance saying these parks can't reopen until their counties have hit the least restrictive yellow tier. But as ABC 10 News reporter Adam Rakusin explains, theme park operators say this could be devastating.
Those who love theme parks rejoice. The state of California has finally released guidance on how to reopen. Now, before you get too excited, it might be a while before reopening is actually a reality.
You're right, we don't have the crystal ball. I don't know when Orange County or San Diego County will indeed enter yellow.
That's Dr. Mark Galley, the California Health and Human Services Secretary. According to the state, smaller theme parks, ones with an overall capacity fewer than 15,000, may resume limited operations when the county is in the orange tier. Capacity will be limited at 25% or 500 people. They can only open outdoor attractions, and ticket sales must be limited to visitors residing in the same county as the park.
Really, the nature of the smaller amusement theme parks is that they're really local activities. They often don't draw from broad communities.
Theme parks like Legoland, SeaWorld, and Disneyland have to wait until the county they're in hits the yellow tier, and then can only open at 25% capacity. SeaWorld is already kind of open at a limited capacity under the state's guidance for zoos and aquariums. Both Legoland and Disneyland fired back at the new guidelines. The president of Legoland California writing in part, not allowing theme parks to open until Tier 4 will destroy the industry in California, and the economic impact to industries that rely heavily on theme parks will be catastrophic.
These parks are meant to operate at full capacity. Disneyland, after a long period of time, a couple of weeks ago actually, announced 28,000 layoffs.
Mira Kopik is a marketing lecturer at San Diego State University.
Hotels, restaurants, gift stores, all those things are being impacted. So it's not just the theme park which is going to struggle, but it's also the whole ecosystem around those theme parks.
Let's go! The state also released guidelines for sporting events and racetracks. Outdoor operations may resume in the orange tier with capacity at 20% and the yellow tier at 25%. So maybe next season these cardboard cutouts at Petco Park will be real San Diegans. Adam Rakusin, ABC 10 News.
For sporting events, the ticket sales must be limited to customers traveling within a 120-mile radius. The state is also discouraging guests from yelling, singing, and booing. San Diego County is just barely hanging on to the red tier as it tries to avoid falling into the most restrictive level. Our adjusted case rate rose today to 7 per 100,000 residents. And if that number gets higher for 2 straight weeks, we would fall to the bottom purple level. The best way to avoid that is for everyone to wear a mask and practice social distancing. Here are the latest numbers. The county announced 265 new cases today, bringing our total to 53,000. There were also 4 new deaths, bringing that total to 857. San Diego's second in-person trial since the pandemic began is being delayed because there weren't enough jurors. 900 summons were sent out with the expectation of getting 80 to 100 potential jurors to fill the 12 spots. But only 40 people showed up today. The court says COVID-19 is an acceptable reason to get out of jury duty. The courtrooms now have plexiglass to keep jurors 6 feet apart. You can stay on top of any new development with coronavirus by downloading the 10 News app. A free version is available in the App Store. The investigation into who's to blame for last year's deadly boat fire off Santa Barbara has been completed. 34 people died that fateful night. As our Mimi Alcala reports, the NTSB is placing the blame squarely in one place.
We don't want the families to have to experience what these families are experiencing now, ever.
In September of 2019, 34 people were killed when a fire spread through the Conception diving boat off of Santa Cruz Island, including San Diegan Nicole Quitasol and 4 of her family members.
The Conception is probably the greatest loss of life in the U.S. Merchant Marine for many decades at 34.
The NTSB's 5 board members ruled Tuesday that the lack of effective oversight by the boat's owner, Truth Aquatics Inc., led to this deadly fire. The NTSB says the 33 passengers and 1 crew member killed were in the bunk room, which is 2 decks below where 5 crew members were asleep in the upper deck. All 5 survived. This picture shows the amount of damage to each section of the boat. The NTSB board members agreed on 18 key findings in the investigation, including that the lack of required roving night watchmen and also lack of smoke detectors in the salon area of the boat delayed the detection of the fire by crew members, leading to the high number of fatalities. As the result of its investigation, the NTSB made new safety recommendations for the Coast Guard and others in the industry, including a requirement that newly constructed vessels with overnight accommodations have smoke detectors in all accommodation spaces, and that they provide a secondary means of escape into a different space than the primary exit so that a single fire should not affect both escape hatches.
The recommendations that we've issued today, if implemented, and that's the key, if implemented, would reduce the risk of future passenger vessel fires growing undetected.
Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
A separate federal criminal investigation into the fire is currently underway. And we now know the name of the man police say admitted to killing another man with a bow and arrow. Police say Miguel Venegas flagged them down yesterday in National City and said he killed a man with a bow and arrow in a transient camp near Naval Base San Diego. The victim's name has not yet been released. No word on a motive either. Venegas was booked into jail on suspicion of murder. Your voice, your vote. National City's mayor is urging people to get out and vote. Alejandra Sotelo Solis joined other community members at the National City Library today to provide voter safety information and guidelines for first-time voters.
We want to urge all to know this election will count every vote, and please be patient and make a plan.
The National City and Lincoln Acres libraries are both available to drop off your ballot. California could be a political loser in the census. Experts are projecting that we will lose at least 1 congressional seat once the census is finalized. ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl goes in depth to explain how San Diegans could see a big impact.
Hello, I'm here to conduct 2020 census.
The 2020 census officially ended last week, and while we wait for the final tally, outside experts predict California's political voice will shrink for the first time ever.
By the numbers, it looks like California is almost certain to lose 1 seat, and we are right on the razor's edge of losing a 2nd seat.
Douglas Johnson is a researcher at the Rose Institute at Claremont McKenna College.
And that would mean we have 2 less votes in D.C. when there are votes on which states should get transportation dollars, or what should be water policy, or anything like that matters to California.
It also matters in the Electoral College. California could drop from 55 electors to 53, giving the Golden State less influence in future presidential elections. When the squiggly congressional maps get redrawn, Johnson says it's easy to predict which region will lose the first House seat, eastern Los Angeles County.
We can see that area is way short of population for where it should be to justify the number of seats it has.
He says predicting the second lost seat is trickier. It could get carved out of the agriculture-rich Central Valley, or, more likely, he says, from northern San Diego County, in an area covering Solana Beach, Vista, Carlsbad, Oceanside, and into southern Orange County.
When we look at that area, well, of course, the district in the middle is the 49th, and so it's the most likely to get squeezed.
Ultimately, it'll be up to the California Redistricting Commission to redraw the lines, a group created in 2010. They draw crazy shapes because each district has to have equal population within one person, and there are federal requirements about grouping minorities together to ensure they have representation. Democratic Congressman Mike Levin represents the 49th and told me in a statement it's far too early to discuss any changes to the district because there are a lot of unknowns. The latest data came from before the pandemic, and it showed California holding on to the seat, but by a margin of less than 3,300 people.
Keep in mind, talking about 3,000 people in the context of a 40 million population estimate is a tiny, tiny fraction. So the slightest bit of error, or even more concerning, the slightest undercount from the census could trip us into losing that second seat.
The two states in line to take the seat are Arizona and Minnesota.
Did they do a better count in California than they did in Arizona and then they did in Minnesota? And that's actually why I think Minnesota is a bigger threat to take our seat.
Minnesota had the highest self-response rate in the country, meaning census workers had fewer people to find through follow-up efforts. Whatever the lines end up being, California's new congressional districts will be in place for the elections in 2022. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
A reminder, the final presidential debate is Thursday. Coverage begins here on ABC 10 at 5 p.m. right after our 4 p.m. newscast. The debate gets underway at 6 o'clock, followed by a special edition of ABC 10 News at 8.